passe. Super l'artiste. Super. Encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Hello everyone and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. It's time for the knockout stages of the IHF World Championship 2025. No more second chances. It's do or die, and it's time to look at the 8 teams left in this competition. Chris here, joined by Alex, and coming up on the pod today, our special guest will be Björn Pazen, who will be joining us from Croatia to chat about the remaining contenders. Alex, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's quarterfinals, generally the most exciting stage of a world championship. It has been for the last couple of years, at least, or last couple of editions. So I'm pretty excited. We've got 2 non-European teams. You know, what else can you ask for? I'd say the poor Nordics are reeling with just Denmark getting through, between Sweden, Norway and Iceland all getting knocked out. But there's some good teams left. There's some great matchups. And you've made it over to Croatia. So
yes.
You're finally on side.
No longer will my commentary be half a second slower than the action, Alex. I'll be there in person, ready to bring you the action as it actually happens. It's good to be here and looking forward to the games.
So you're really happy about Croatia getting through.
Oh, man.
In the end, getting the win against Slovenia to book their spot in the quarterfinal, winning the group, actually. You're probably really happy because that's going to make the next couple of days a lot more interesting for you.
Yeah, at the Arena Zagreb, I've been there for a few big occasions in the past, mostly featuring Zagreb, and the atmosphere can get incredible when the home team is going well. And yeah, it was a little bit worrying at the beginning of that game as Slovenia showed that the inspiration to spoil the party is almost as strong as anything else in the world of handball, particularly when it's your neighbours. And they put up a damn good fight. It was a really, really good game, and a game actually that made me think that Slovenia really under-delivered in a way, that they haven't actually quality-wise fallen off too much of a cliff compared to getting to the semi-finals of the Olympics. But yeah, Croatia coming up good in the end. They are like riding a crest of the wave here at home, and they've got a really nice quarterfinal for them, like against Hungary, which we'll get into later. There's no guarantee they're going to come through it, but I think they'll be pretty happy with it from probably this time last week, looking at what was to come and thinking, oh goodness, we're not going to get through this. But 3 wins out of 3, and they're through with Egypt. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. And like looking at the quarterfinal lineup, I just had to go back earlier on my notebook, Alex, to see how I was laying out this championship. And right at the beginning, fun. You know, seeing who I thought would be in the quarterfinals at this stage. And yeah, to offer a bit of, you know, transparency and accountability here. As the actual quarterfinals, we have Germany up against Portugal, Denmark against Brazil, France against Egypt, and Croatia against Hungary. Now, I remember when I was like laying this out, I was trying to come up with some funky predictions. You'll remember my top 3 were Denmark, Croatia, and Norway. So 2 of those are still in with a chance. However, my quarterfinal lineup does not make for good reading, Alex. I had Sweden versus Germany. Not happening. Norway versus Denmark. Not happening. France versus Iceland. Not happening. And Netherlands versus Croatia. Not happening.
Well,
so half of the teams
50%.
knocked out.
You got 50%.
50%, yes.
That's solid. You could have just thrown all the teams into a bag, picked out random names, and probably got close to that.
Exactly.
But,
yeah.
You know, that's a solid rate. I don't think I made a full quarterfinal bracket, but I'd be pretty close. I do still have Egypt in a medal position, which
Yes.
is a bit more difficult. Norway, of course, let me down as well. We do have, of course, Björn Pazen coming on to talk about every team. He has a wealth of knowledge and a good stage to get him in on the podcast. But also want to say thank you for everyone who has signed up and joined us on the Patreon over the last week. And if you haven't joined it yet, still a chance to do it. This is our kind of big quarterfinal preview for everyone, but we will continue to do bonus podcasts after each round leading up to a tremendous final in Oslo.
And with that, time to bring in Björn Pazen. And joining us from an empty media section in Porec is Björn Pazen. Björn, you've been in Croatia for the entire championship, right? How you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. To be precise, I'm 17 days in Porec and then continue 2 days in Zagreb. So I will not be physically in the north, but I see the matches from there and I enjoy the Adriatic coast.
Very nice. Well, it's great to have you joining us for this quarter-final preview. And we can start before we go into the games with you. What's your general feeling about the championship as a whole as we head into the knockout phase?
It's interesting this time. Much more interesting than maybe expected. And even though we come out at the end with the final of Denmark versus France as usual, in between the opening match and the final, there were some really interesting things and there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I think that is something that we should cherish about this championship. Every tournament, I lament about the same teams arriving to the semi-finals. It's really been Denmark, Sweden, France, Spain, and a bit of Norway sprinkled in. And 3 of those teams are out, and we're going to have some new teams in there. Germany, of course, I've made it to the top, but there's a big mix-up in the tournament. We got 2 non-European teams, and I'm really looking at the quarterfinals. There's a lot of really interesting matchups. What game really stands out to you as the most interesting one, the closest one, maybe?
I would say the closest one, in my opinion, is Germany versus Portugal, which is, in my opinion, completely open. I'm quite sure that Denmark is the bigger favorite against Brazil. I see Croatia a lot of matches, so with the crowd behind them, they're a little bit favored against Hungary. And France-Egypt, for me, is the second most open match.
Well, we'll start with the most open match then, with your home nation, Germany. It's been an interesting ride for them so far, having come through an all-European preliminary round group. Nothing special, but they got the victories and then really maybe brought down to earth with another heavy loss to Denmark. But they're into the quarterfinals now. And yeah, I think if you asked anyone before the tournament, if it was a Portugal-Germany quarterfinal, that everyone would say Germany are fairly clear favourites. But something has really shifted in this tournament. Portugal have been fantastic. But what do you think of Germany's performance over the 2 weeks and where they're sitting now, sickness and all, heading into the quarterfinals?
And the funny thing is when you say, when anybody mentioned the quarterfinal Portugal versus Germany before, I would say most of them had expected a quarterfinal Spain, Sweden, or Norway versus Germany, exactly. Because these were the teams that in Germany, most of the people had expected to become as the opponent. But yes, talking about the German team, Jurek Knorr will be back, who looks to be better, not perfect. But he will join the team for the match tomorrow. So when you see the German matches, it was not the top level they had showed at the Olympic Games, especially not in defense. But when you see the goalkeepers, they were absolutely outstanding. Andy Wolf and David Späth, and I think they saved the points for them. When you see 5 German players were men of the match and 4 times was goalkeepers. So this is a thing that in defense, they really, really struggled against Denmark. This was too fast for them. So this was really when the goalkeepers were poor in this match, because I would say 70% of all goals were 1-against-1 actions of players like Matthias Gitzel when they came through. So, and definitely they have to stabilize the defense for the quarterfinals. In attack, you saw Lena Suscin is still on fire after the Olympic Games. He's the best scorer. And you had some options with Yuri Knorr. We have to see now how much he can help the team after his sickness, his problems he had. So I'm sure that he can help. But you saw in attack, you can always count on the line players, Johannes Goller and Justus Fischer. But the problem when you see it, how many chances they miss. So it started already. I was there at the preparation matches against Brazil, and I think in the second match they missed 22 chances, but still win by 2 goals. And it continued exactly in the preliminary round. And against Denmark they were overrun. So and against Tunisia this was easy peasy. And against Italy, it could have turned the other way around if they had not the goalkeeper like they had. So I'm sure they can show much more than they showed by now. But I would say, especially when we're now talking of Portugal, the defense, especially facing the backcourt players of Portugal, must stand much stronger. And you cannot only rely that your goalkeeper saves 20 shots.
You make a good point there about the speed, and I think that's why this is such an interesting matchup, because Germany just couldn't match Denmark, which is fair. No one can do it at that fastest level, but Portugal aren't far behind. When you look at their performances to date and the players they have and the style they really base it on, it's very similar to that sporting run and gun style. Portugal have scored 46 goals, 35 goals, 37, 31, 30 and 30 in this championship. So they're going to be playing fast. They have the Costa brothers. Will Denmark how will Germany respond to that? Will they try to slow it down or try to run with them?
You saw what happens when they tried to run the same speed as they did with Denmark. They ran and ran and ran, and they lost the ball and counterattack, goal. So I think the strategy must be to have more patience in attack, and to have a reverse shift. So if you lose the ball in attack, you must be really quick to go back to try to stop this Portuguese attacks. So, but in attack itself, of course, Alfred Gislason want to play with more speed right from the wings, and also by the second wave with the line players. But I think against Portugal, they might slow it down a little bit, especially in the opening phase, that they not have a start like they usually started, except the match against Tunisia. So that they could slow down the match a bit, and maybe then get the Portuguese team more in the position attack. But also in the position attack, they can score. And you saw it in the last main round match. So it was a +2 in this match that they needed the point against Chile. And in the last 20 minutes, I think they scored 22 goals. So if you let them run, they overrun you. And this is exactly the problem that Germany can face. Portugal also has some good goalkeepers, so it will not be easy to score against them. So the option to have counterattacks is visible for Germany, but I think they try to do it by 1-against-1 actions. Maybe Julian Köster played quite well. Ustjins, if he has the right aim to score and does not miss too many chances. You have the options in the backcourt. You don't have to rely completely on full speed game.
And I want to ask about Julian Köster, because he has, I think, really stepped up over the main round as well. Like his performances against Denmark was one of the bright points for the Germans. And in a game like this against Portugal, where they're going to need to maybe reduce a little bit the substitutions between attack and defense, a player like him who can play at left back in attack seem to be in good form and also play a big role in the defense could be quite important for this team.
Yeah, but Julian Köster was the thing. He started quite well in the season. Then he got an injury. He was out for 3 months. Then he came back. And right before the start of the preparation, he also had some health problems and was not on 100% when he joined the team. But you saw it from the start, as you mentioned, he really improved. And exactly this thing is what Gislason always said. Usually I only nominate players which can also play attack and defense. So he doesn't like the changes. Sometimes he needs to change, like with Knorr. But for this example, Köster is someone who can run in the front and run back, and is also good. I think he's the best in the German team in terms of blocks. So he is as tall to block some of the Costa shots.
For sure. And I think René Zerschens has been great. He's been their top scorer, but he hasn't had the same level of tournament as the Olympics. And, you have to realize that he's still young, he's new in this team, but, his shooting percentage is 58% overall, which is, I'd say, it's respectable. It's right on the line of a good backcourt player, but I'd say under a little bit. His 9-meter shooting at just under 50%. Again, fine, but not at the highest level. And he has quite a few turnovers, 13 in total. So I think there's more that to unlock for Germany with Özçins. He can have a fantastic game. But I think a lot of it really falls on Yuri Knorr in this case, because I think he is the player that can actually slow things down and take things methodically, because you look at the other options in terms of Niels Lichtlein, Luka Witzka, they're not the dominant playmaker. They're the fast playmakers, but if you want to slow it down, Yuri Knorr is the key here, and whether he gets the permission to just run the team like that.
Yeah, he controls the match in the end. So he decides speed or not. He decides 1-against-1 on himself, a pass to the line player, a pass to left or right. And he's the one, exactly what you say, he can exactly put the speed they need. So if they need more speed, he's the one to go to. And if they need less speed, he's also the one who can slow it down a little bit. And but I'm sure that if he's on about 80%, that he can be the leading figure in this match, because I think you need a lot of tactical knowledge and tactical experience to steer a match like this. And Yuri Knorr definitely is the one in the team who can do this.
Moving on to one of the other teams you mentioned there, Germany's opponents in the matches before the championship, Brazil. We covered them quite a lot in our last podcast. They've been one of the big stories, one of the really nice stories of this championship alongside Portugal. Maybe a question for both of you coming from this. Do you see any way for them to make life difficult for Denmark? Never mind win the game, but, make life difficult?
Who shall start?
You can start. Go on. Guest first.
Guest first. Normally not, but the problem is that Denmark goes through the match with 100%. And even when they played the Czech Republic, Nikolaj Jakobsen didn't change his starting 7 that much. He really played with the same players. He said, I need them in the crucial matches, so they should run and gun like this. And to be honest, if you have the rest of the team knowing and accepting this is great. In other teams, the other would say, hello, when is my playing time come? But really, to stop this team, at first you need a goalkeeper. Brazil has a goalkeeper, an outstanding goalkeepers, to be honest. And so they have a goalkeeper. The problem of them could be they also can play fast. But in the end, it's all about the reverse gear running back. So if you have to run 60 minutes, the Brazil squad is okay. But they're in the opposite side to Nikolaj Jakobsen here. The Tita has to use the whole squad. So I think if the first 15 minutes, he has to make a kind of transition in his team to get some fresh air and breathe a little bit for those players who had to run the first 15 minutes. And then the thing could be that the players between 11 and 16 in the Brazilian team are maybe not that experienced, especially in this way of playing how Denmark plays. So in my opinion, the only chance they have is start with a 5-0. 5-0 lead and keep the gap going with their goalkeeper. One point we have to see is how many Danish fans will travel to Oslo. So they had Hanning was 15,000 behind them. There was a pre-match show starting 1 hour before, and everybody was in the mood to have a great handball party. So maybe they need this. Okay, they won their trophies also elsewhere in the world, but with this support from the stands, I think they get some additional wings. So I don't know how many people from Denmark will come to Oslo, and so Brazil has a chance if they're still on an equal level in minute 53, because maybe then Denmark gets nervous. But to be really honest, I don't think so.
I am getting more and more hopeful with each passing moment. And I think you mentioned the game against Czech Republic. And I do think the Czech Republic and Xavi Sabate gave us a bit of a template to beat Denmark. Obviously, Czech Republic was just not good enough. They just had the worst shooting percentage I've ever seen from a team in a tournament. I think they shot below 40% as a team in this tournament. It was shambolic. They're not good enough. But what they did was they did not play second wave fast break at all. Like Czech Republic, every single attack was a set attack. They didn't get into the running game with Denmark, because if you do that, you end up like Germany in the main round. It's just impossible. And Brazil are generally a team that slows things down. They're not a fast team. You know, they almost every game. So only Portugal managed to score 30 goals against Brazil in the tournament so far. Every other team they played, they've held them into the mid-20s. They don't have the full pace that other teams have, and they don't strive for that. Their goalkeepers are being good, and their defense is good. But the other point that kind of came out in that Czech Republic game, which I think is crucial, is that I think Denmark are a little bit susceptible to proper 9-meter shooting over the center.
Kiel would beat them. And Kiel of last season might beat them. Who can only 9 meters.
Exactly. Because when you look at their center block, it's Magnus Augstrup and Lucas Jørgensen. They're not small men by any means, but they're both kind of 194, 193, and not the like big wingspan kind of players. They're tall, and Czech Republic time and time again slowed things down and took a jump shot over the middle, and that got past Emil Nielsen.
Well, in some case, it was Daniel Blaha who didn't even need to jump. He just stood there and threw his big right arm at it. You know, but it really did expose something that nobody else had done, which was really interesting.
Exactly, and I think Brazil do have the elements in the team to do that. A good defense, a slowing down the game, a good goalkeeper, and like Brian Monte to take the shots. Who hasn't been phenomenal, but he can do something there. Also, I find Daniel Langaro really funny. I just want to say that he looks like the least athletic player in the world. If you ever see him play, he doesn't jump higher than like 10 centimeters, but he still gets those shots off and scores, and he has been quite good in the tournament. Strangely unathletic. Just focus on that the next time you see it. He looks like he's in slow motion, but it does go in. So I think there's a lot there for Brazil, and there's just this belief. I think it's going to be a tight game. Am I going to say that Brazil are going to beat Denmark? I want to, but yeah.
More out of hope than anything else, I guess.
I think so. Yeah. And, you know, Emil Nielsen, another point, has been phenomenal. 44%, averaging almost 14 saves a game. Just wild, and incredible. Big part is he's saving 43% from the wings. 43% from the wings is crazy. You know, think of a winger's shooting percentage. It's higher than that. Brazil don't have great wingers. Unless
you're on Denmark's right wing, and that was one other thing I wanted to mention. Niklas Kirkelukke has had a really bad time the last couple of games. He hasn't been able to buy a goal. So if I were Brazil, I'd leave him alone, let him shoot, and see what happens. You know, because if he has to come off, then they have to shift things around. They did it against Czechia, and he got so frustrated with Kirkelukke Jakobsen that Gitzel had to go left wing in defense in order to accommodate him on the court. So yeah, it is possible.
To be honest, I agree with some really good analysis of Alex, but how important is the middle block defense if you almost score a goal with every attack?
That's what they showed against Germany. It is a very good point. And I think if somehow this result does happen, then we have given ourselves enough to say that we saw it coming. However, if the score is 42-35, then, well, it fits the narrative as well.
I just hope that Brazil studied that tape against Czech Republic and take some lessons from that. I think they again, we've talked about they need to do something different. A team needs to do a special plan to beat Denmark, and I hope they've integrated that in. And yeah, last point is just Simon Putlik has been unbelievable.
Yes.
He's
back.
Like his 9-meter shooting has been crazy. 63% from 9 meters, which is well above any other player in the competition. So yeah, he's good. He is.
Let's speak about the other hosts. The only hosts left, actually, because Norway, the other host nation, they're out of it. Denmark's time at home is over. Croatia, they've got another massive crowd coming tomorrow for their game against Hungary. You said they were slight favourites, Björn. Do you put that down to the crowd, or where do you see it on the court that they might have the edge over now a very well-routined Hungary squad?
To be honest, they're the last hosts in the tournament who play on home ground. So, yes, so definitely this crowd will push them again to the limit. The other thing is, even if he only plays 20 seconds or even less, Domagoj Duvniak's return to the team on the bench, when you see him acting on the bench, how he pushes his team is incredible. He's a kind of the big motivator. And then especially together with goalkeeper Dominik Kuzmanovic, when you see the reactions when he saves, and yesterday also the reaction of Marin Šipić, the line player, was incredible in the match against Slovenia. So they are full of emotion. So they need this emotion. So, and you saw the arena turned down a little bit after the 0-5 against Slovenia, but then they were back. And as well as the arena is back, the team is back. So, it's always the thing of hosts. Is it more pressure, or is it more the push of the team? So, but in this case, I really see it's a push for the team. And they managed such many ups and downs. Duvniak out, losing against Egypt. Then this match against Iceland, where they're really on a high. Then against Slovenia, this was like going up and down the whole match, and they need to fight for it. So if they are stable, so the only thing I read now is David Mandic is out with injury. So he came in and is out now. This is really, really poor. But to be honest, when we talk about the emotion and the spirit of this team, and also the spirit of the team, they had the spirit always in the last years, but now combined with the tactical input of Dago Sigurdsson, and this is why I see them, I would say, in a 60-40 favorite role against Hungary. So altogether, they, from the individual point of view, Hungary on some positions have the better players. They also have great goalkeepers. And for example, on the line and in the center block, they're a little bit stronger. But for Croatia, then you have Ivan Martinovic as a shooter. Then now Filip Klavas, absolutely secure penalty shooter. So I would say that Croatia, in combination with the fans and Domagoj Duvniak as Mr. Adrenaline on the bench, they can make it.
And I just love that about Croatia. The fire, as you said, the unpredictability. It brings a whole element that Balkan handball just brings a real crucial element to any tournament. When we see the Scandinavian teams reaching the finals over and over again, it's beautiful handball, but in ways it's almost a little bit predictable, like what the teams are going to do. I have no idea what Croatia are going to do in this game, and that's what makes it exciting, because I think based on results, based on performances, like Croatia should absolutely be the favourites at home against Hungary in this quarterfinal. but I'm certain that at one stage Hungary are going to be 4 goals up in this game, and something magic has to happen, and Duvniak is going to limp into a shot from 10 meters, and everyone's going to go wild. And I just love that for this tournament. It's great to see. Chris, any idea how Hungary can actually do something? Honestly, I haven't been too impressed, but like, what do they need to do to win this game?
Hungary have come through some tight games in this tournament, and they, like they have done a few times now at major championships, I find that they are very calm and composed under this pressure. Like the Netherlands game was a great example of that, where they were a goal up with a couple of minutes left to go, and they managed to find another gear. Whether it be in defense or attack, there's players in that team that can get the job done. I think this is what I like about both teams. They both, have the ability to deliver properly under pressure. Hungary have seen what they can do against Croatia, because pretty much every other team has had a moment against Croatia where they've dominated, or broke them down in some way. So, as you said, it's been a very up and down tournament for them. So the answers are potentially there for Hungary, but I think a lot of it is going to come down to how composed they can be. They too have some fiery youth in the squad, and some fiery players who are not so young in the squad as well. So I think both teams in a way are quite similar. It will be, for me, whoever can stay the most, not strictly calm, but clinical in the last 15 minutes of the game. And that's what Hungary have done early in the tournament, and that's what Croatia have done most recently. And I think that was what was really impressive against Slovenia yesterday, that they were so clinical at the key times in both areas of the court. So it is wide open for Hungary to spoil the party, but I don't think they will do it. I think Croatia are just slightly ahead in my book as well.
Usually all my predictions are wrong, as you know, but for this game, I'm absolutely sure from all the 4 quarter-final matches, this will be the low scorer.
A nice 23-22.
Something like that. Up extra time.
I'll have to ask this for our Icelandic listeners, because in the game against Slovenia, I didn't watch it closely. I don't have an opinion on this, but a lot of the Icelandic fans who were watching that game complained about the referees, and that, I suppose I don't, in this case, I'm not even blaming referees here. It's just that home advantage and how much it has an impact. We know that is the main point of home advantage in sport, that fans can influence a referee even if they're trying their best to be impartial. So I'm not shitting on the referees here, but anything from that game against Slovenia that really stood out, that it was kind of a clear home advantage and rigged, as many Icelandic fans wrote to us.
I can't imagine rigged. Can you, Björn? I mean, I saw there were a few maybe attacker fouls that happened against Slovenia that didn't get called against Croatia down the other end, and the Slovenian players were mentioning that, or inside the area, but nothing that felt dramatic.
I would say it was a good nomination to have very experienced referees in this match from the Czechs. And I have not heard that the Icelandic fans complained that the last goal of Slovenia against Egypt was taken away. So we can talk about this more. Yeah. This was more for Slovenia. So I would say that there were some actions in the match where you could say, okay, this was 50-50. And I would say 3 or 5 were for Croatia. But I don't see it as a major point for this match. Of course, there are emotions in the match, and of course, there are a lot of things. But I also read that the referees brought Croatia back in the match. No, it was Kuzmanovic and the weak shooting of Slovenia after the 5-0.
Yeah, they brought on Domen Makuc too late, sadly. I mean, imagine if that last goal against Egypt had counted, then it would have been Iceland and Croatia going through. What a difference one pass makes, huh? On to the final game we haven't covered. You mentioned it's probably the second most open one for you, Björn, between Egypt and France, and I'm really excited about this in a totally different way. I mean, this for me feels like a blockbuster match between combined the 2 highest quality teams of the 8 facing each other.
So what I definitely say is from the individual point of view, definitely two of the strongest teams. From the tactical point of view, definitely. And I would say that Egypt has a chance because France, in this tournament especially, again, has some problem with the goalkeepers. So the thing is that Egypt goalkeepers, they play on a serious level, not so high and not so down, but they save the shots they have to. And in France, it was up and down. And I remember some matches from Desbonnet when he was really good, but some others when they really had almost 0 from 10 or something like this. So I felt I saw the French team here in Povec. They always want to make sure, okay, we score 35 goals. This should be enough to win a match. So this is why I think they also have the shortest attacking time. Like Denmark, they go through 1-against-1, Dicamem, boom, 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 pass to Fabregas, goal. They want to make a goal as quick as possible, and then they have a good defense. But behind this defense, I think this is what Egypt also knows is when we find the gaps in the defense, then we have good chances to score a goal. So this is why, for example, when you see Ali Zain or Yahya Omar, how they play and the style they play, this is, in my opinion, they can beat France.
I think they can. I think this has the making of another epic quarterfinal involving Egypt and a top European team. Not Denmark this time, but it could be France. On France, I just want to really highlight Karl Konan in defense. You mentioned, Bjorn, that France have a good defense. Karl Konan has been absolutely incredible in this tournament. He is destroying people. He has by far the most amount of blocks. He's averaging 2.3 blocks a game, which is, it's big in handball. That kind of level is not really seen. He also is getting steals, and there's an action in one of the games where for a whole defense, Karl Konan just kept it together. Like there was 4 tackles, a block in there, holding on to the line player, and still took down the shooting player from 9 meters. And that was he has been just unbelievable. And I think he's almost the difference for France from kind of the last few kind of years we've seen that could actually take them all the way to the top to a gold medal when we're talking about further in competition. But at the same time, Egypt are a team that will get France in a dogfight. We've seen that they can do it. And does anyone know the latest status on Hesham? I think he's going to be back in, but I haven't heard anything official.
Now it's been a week. They talked about a week, and now it's been a week. So I guess we won't know for sure until tomorrow, right?
Of course, Karl Konan is an incredible defense player, but then you have to see his counterpart in the middle block with Ludovic Fabregas. So a middle block like this, usually you don't need a goalkeeper, and then you should not care who's standing behind you. To be honest, this middle block is definitely the best you can see at this tournament. And I agree that Konan is even better in defense than Fabregas, but they're two combined. So I don't want to be a player who has to decide to go through this to score a goal.
I'm looking forward to that battle with Adel on the line. That's going to be quite fun because that is a key component for Egypt as well. But Egypt have the better goalkeepers, I think, and the more consistent in that. I have been really impressed for the most part with both Mohamed Ali and Karim Hendawi. Both have the ability to be the lead goalkeeper from the start and to come in and be the hero, which I think will be necessary for one of these teams. So that's maybe another slight advantage there. And you mentioned that game against Denmark, Alex. They also had another quarterfinal epic heartbreak against Spain at the Olympics last summer.
Yes.
It's their time to finally break through. If they do, then there'll be no fear, no matter who they come up against in the semi-final, with the weird loop around with the teams who may have already faced each other coming up in the semi-final again.
They were the only team that beat Croatia by now.
There you go.
Definitely. Ali Zain has been really good as well.
Yes.
I think he he kind of took a step down as a player for a couple of years when he came over to Europe, initially in Barcelona, then kind of got a little bit lost, but he's back to his highest level.
He had to find out that he's not a defensive specialist. He can actually play an attack, because he was kind of pigeonholed in that defensive specialist position in his short time in Barca. And I guess that can have an effect. But yeah, I thought they would feel the loss of Yahya Eldora more than they did. I mean, Hesham, when he was on, and Zayn have done very good in filling that, and the playmakers have taken a step up as well. So yeah, it's been good to see. Bjorn, one last question to leave you with before we let you get on. You are in Porec, the home of the President's Cup. Who's going to win the President's Cup final?
This is. I had a nice comment yesterday of the Kuwait coach. He said Poland does not belong here. So, he said, unfortunately, they played in a group like this. Normally, Poland does that. Okay, Poland is the clear favorite against USA. So Marcin Lievski pointed it out that it was definitely not the dream of winning the President's Cup at this tournament. But it's always, I could joke with him when you just go back to 2009 and Spain won the President's Cup and 4 years later was world champion. This is always good to have in mind. No, in the President's Cup, really, I like this tournament, to be honest, because this is for the teams. They know they have no chance of winning a first round match, except I would say Japan and Poland, and they have a lot of equal matches, so really good matches here. So, and how USA improved, especially they beat Japan, they beat Bahrain, and they showed some really good matches. So they're the outsiders, so they're the underdogs against Poland. Even so, Kamil Zupaczak is not playing, but Poland is, to be honest, the only team full of professionals here. So the others are more or less, there are some semi-professionals, there's some playing in the third French or fourth German league, which is not professional. But yes, but I really like to see those matches, and it was interesting also to see what they are doing. And to be honest, I'm really looking forward, and I'm crossing fingers tomorrow for Guinea, that they take their first win, that they beat Cuba, because they are so motivated and they're always smiling and say, we're here to learn, and we really don't want to come home without this victory. So tomorrow, first match, 1:00, is for me the grand final.
I love it. That's what it's all about. A good reminder for us all that whether it's the 31st placement match or whether it's Slovenia just trying to break their neighbours' hearts, every single match matters at a championship like this. There are no games where their players switch off. So, Bjorn, lovely words to wrap up on. Enjoy the final games in Porec tomorrow, and see you in Zagreb on the semi-final day. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Bjorn. Great insight as always, and you heard it here first. Tune in at 1:00 today. Alex, when I mentioned the potential for Egypt to come up against Croatia again in the semi-final because of the groups crossing back over, I saw flashes of fire light up in your eyes. You're not happy about this, and nor are some people on our Discord as well.
Yeah, I think so. It's I get why it's happening. There was a situation where I think in the last World Championship, Denmark had to travel. You want to make sure that the teams that are going to bring in the fans.
Denmark had to go from Malmö for at the end of their group to Poland, and then straight back over to Sweden. So they had to go back and forth. I think that was the big problem there.
Exactly. So it was that extra step, and I think that's why it was introduced. I think also just making sure that the right teams are in the right stadiums. It would be very strange if Croatia ended up playing in Oslo in a semi-final, which is fair enough. But you think you can still do that. You can account for that when making the schedule. But it does feel annoying that we could get Denmark and Germany again in that semi-final. And, if things fall out as I don't know if they should. I think Portugal are probably favourites from my perspective. But either way, it's kind of... there is a scenario where Denmark play Germany and Egypt play Croatia. and they're all playing again, and it's just a bit weird, like what's going on here, and it just doesn't feel right. What can you do about it? I'm not really sure.
I'm not as fussed about it. I think this is something that has happened in tournaments before, and not just because of the geographical side of things. Like I think about, now don't quote me on this, but at least at some point during last 30 years in the FIFA World Cup in football, teams in the same group would end up crossing over and facing in the semi-finals, not a final. But in that case, of course, you've got the round of 16, you've got the quarterfinals before that. So you've got enough space for teams to knock each other out and for that not to happen again. So I think probably the issue here is that they face so recently. They face in the main round, and then maybe they should avoid each other until the final. Yeah, I think this feeds into a whole other discussion as well about having 3 host nations in countries that are nowhere near each other at the end of the day. And then you might not have such a problem if you just had to hop around the Balkans or hop around Scandinavia, then there'd be less of an issue than potentially crossing back and forth across Europe twice. So yeah, generally I agree with you, though I do kind of like the idea of 2 teams facing off in the final who have not come up against each other.
Yeah.
And that is guaranteed, which is kind of good. So let's hope it's, I was going to say Brazil and Portugal, but no, they face each other in the semifinals. Let's hope it's Denmark and Portugal facing off against Egypt and Hungary. I really actually don't hope that at all. I don't care. I'm not as...
Best teams will win, and, even... it's true. Like, the game between Germany and Denmark in the main round is not going to be the same game in the semi-final. There's going to be a lot of changes, and that's part of other sports like the NBA, which have is a big part of it, where they face off against each other for multiple games and adjust with each game to see what happens. So maybe not the biggest issue with this tournament, but we kind of left.
Well, actually, it is very American, because like you think about it, like in NFL and NBA, you've got the 2 different basically conferences. So the 2 teams facing off, there's no way they could potentially face each other in the playoffs, in the run-in.
Yeah.
So this is the Denmark conference and the France conference, and whoever emerges from them gets to face each other.
That's true. And I do love a part of it is some Schadenfreude here with it was Sweden and Norway that were really complaining about the difficult part of the draw, that they'd have to face, Denmark, that they can't avoid them, they have to beat all these teams. And they both went out to Brazil and Portugal. You can't complain about facing off against Denmark and having no chance if you can't beat Brazil. There's been some general negative thoughts on this tournament shared around the handball world lately. We left this discussion for the end of the podcast because don't want to start this podcast on a negative note of what's going on with the championship. And there's probably not too much more to say than what we've said before about this tournament. I think there's been a lot of complaints about crowds at the tournament. Just really what happened is the IHF, I don't think they're even greedy. They just didn't price it right. They couldn't understand that $100 or Jesus, I'm so American now with my fucking dollars all the time. This €100 in Denmark and Norway, which is the price for a lot of tickets there. Like there's no huge price discrepancy between Denmark, Norway, and Croatia at this championship for tickets. It meant that the cheapest tickets in Croatia were like €60, I think, for lower levels and for high levels. And if you want to sit on a lower level, it's over €100, and that's crazy for a country like Croatia compared to Norway, where that's just fine. That's the monthly earnings are completely different there, and that annoys me. That's just poor planning, poor thinking.
That I fully agree with. And actually, that makes it all the more ridiculous that for more than half of the games, Croatia have had a full house, like 15,600 people have been paying those, what is for Croatians, an extortionate price. But they have had the best crowds in the championship. But I mean, I know there's been a lot of frustration around crowds in general, and and it comes from I think Germany, for example, and there's a lot of talk in this in the media, in Kreishab as well, and rightly so. Like when Germany are not facing the big teams, that they're seeing the half empty or like a third full arenas, which is a common thing in the sport, and it is like it is clear when the home nation is playing, then it's going to be a full house. And we have 3 home nations. Every single day you're going to see an arena that is full, but then you're also going to see most of the matches which are nowhere near full. And that is because they have the same tickets for the entire day. And so, crowds have to make a decision whether they want to go to.
Yeah, it's tough to go to 3 matches at times. Like that is just too much handball, even for us.
When it's a weekday and people have to travel to Herning, and as we know, nobody actually lives in Herning. Everyone lives at least half an hour away in Denmark, and then they're not going to be there for the 3:30 game. It's totally normal.
I think Norway has been a bit of a disappointment as well, that even for Norwegian games. But I blame the Norwegian media, who just absolutely shit on Norway for the whole tournament. And then people are asking why people aren't turning up to games. It's because everyone in Norway hates this Norwegian team and says that they're terrible.
And I think that the poor start there had a major impact on that. At the same time, there's there's a lot that can be done in terms of attracting people to handball matches. There are fans out there. People can travel to games. People do travel. I know. I look at my Instagram and I see handball friends from all around traveling to games at this championship and every championship. People going to the games in Norway, people traveling from London to Denmark to the games, people traveling from Malta to Croatia for the games. But there's no kind of concerted effort. All these things happen by themselves. I feel like there's no package deals that are done to attract people over. Like the amount of handball clubs where people will be like, oh yeah, we'll go like a girls' holiday or a lads' holiday, a team going over for a couple of days and watching some matches. There is an awful lot that can be done there in an international sense to bring the people over, and also in a local sense to get schools involved, do what Japan did in the Women's World Championship, and just the most attended games were the 3:30 games because they were full of school children. And there's been some really interesting chat, which maybe we can get into like proper detail another time, like with Stefan Kretschmar suggesting that also to counteract this kind of monoculture that is developing with everyone relying basically now on Germany and Scandinavia to host tournaments, that it's going to get boring pretty soon for even those fans, and that, it can't be about the money all the time. And his suggestion and I think Bob Hadding had the same suggestion on Kreisab, and I would totally go for that as well, for all tournaments, like Final Fours, European Championships, World Championships. We know now that they're not going to decrease in regularity. That's just never going to happen. So let's mix it up. Let's have every second tournament can be in one of your key markets. Go fill the houses, go fill the coffers in Scandinavia, Germany and France, and then every other tournament go somewhere like for the development aspect. Bring a championship to Brazil. Bring one back to Egypt. They deserve one. Yeah, they deserve one. Bring it to the USA in the in and around the Olympics. Just do something to then kind of focus the other marketing arm, like getting people in the door, because people love going to events. I mean, working in culture events, like we don't have to support a team to go to these things. Just 'cause you can like something, you can like a sport, or like the idea of going to events, and go to them. You just need, they just need to be, these people are out there, they need to be found, or need to be brought in. I think there's just too little of that. It's also like sheltered and bubbly. Like everyone's in this handball bubble and nobody's looking outward.
Obviously the risk there is if you go to Brazil, like stadiums are going to be empty, but you just put it in small stadiums.
Yeah,
just put it in like 2,000 seaters.
Exactly.
Like there's a huge risk for perception, though. If people are tuning in on TV,
but
it is
a full 3,000 seater stadium looks better than an empty 15,000 seater stadium. I was in Brazil and they filled out the games for the Olympics. People go to these things when it's also like a special occasion. And so if the World Championship goes there once every 20 years, then maybe people will like be interested in going. But they have to,
exactly.
You can't just build it and expect people to come. Like the work has to be done as well in terms of getting people to sit there in the stadiums. And I think the 50-50 approach sounds really good. And they have to have different parameters for what a suitable stadium is. Like, let's have 6 different 2,500 seaters in Uganda. Why not? Let's go for it.
We've talked about this, but IHF is just it's 30, 40 years behind. Like the media around the tournament we're just getting a couple of graphics with the fixtures and a couple of videos of nice goals. Your top 5 goals. Like you can't just be... That can't be the content that's coming out of this championship, and it's only up to the individual countries to do more. There has to be just more. The fact that, you talk about money. IHF is rich as fuck. It is reported that they have like 120 million in their coffers to spend, and they spend that on under 17 youth tournaments in Papua New Guinea, where they send couple of hundred people, spend hundreds of thousands, and then can't put that into some sort of media platform. Can't pay another.
They can do it both. They can do both. They can do both. We're not trying to dissuade them from investing in youth handball in Oceania. But if you can do both,
for sure. I've noticed, and you notice it every year, that the World Championship is just for the world. Or for outside of the handball world, the World Championship is still a much bigger deal. When you compare it to the Euros, for people who live and breathe handball, that's where the more attention is. They like it more. It's more competitive. It is the highest level you can get. But when you're talking about outside of the core population that supports handball, there's way more interest that comes in for a World Championship just based on the fact that it is a World Championship. The prestige is there. The interest is massively higher. And there's just potential that keeps being, wasted to harness that interest. But
to prove that and to kind of show what the thinking is, like the next Men's World Championship is in Germany.
Yeah.
2027. 2029, France with Germany as like the junior partners. 2031, Denmark, Iceland, Norway.
Yeah.
Literally nothing. We're going to Iceland. That's interesting, but Iceland doesn't need Iceland could have been, USA, Canada, and Iceland. Why not? USA, Canada, Greenland, Iceland. But so that won't even change till at the very earliest 2033.
Yeah.
And by then, Australia will have hosted the Olympics. So we'll have 2 English-speaking Olympics hosts. Well, something we're not going to fix, Alex, but we
can try. We're trying with this podcast to spread the world far beyond the core handball fans. But let's end on a high note. Let's do predictions.
Oh, yes.
We got quarterfinals. So we got winners. Best game. I want to find out which game do you think is going to be the best one. And most likely surprise.
Denmark to beat Brazil. Portugal to beat Germany. Egypt to beat France, Croatia to beat Hungary. I think Portugal, Germany will be the closest game. And, well, there's a couple of surprises in there. So but the most likely one, Portugal. I think that because
is it even a surprise, Chris? Is it even a surprise?
I think on form they're the better team right now. But I'm pretty sure if we looked at SofaScore and looked at the odds being given, that Germany would be considered the
just a bit. Germany are very slight favorites.
Yeah.
So
okay. France are comfortable favorites compared to that over Egypt.
And I agree with that, actually. I do think France are going to beat Egypt. That goes against my pre-tournament prediction, goes against my hopes. But I do think France are very, very good. I think that's going to be the best game, though. I think it will.
I agree,
down.
yeah. Same.
Otherwise, I kind of have to agree with... Again, Portugal, Germany... Both of us putting Portugal's just seems a bit dangerous. Germany are still, Olympic silver medalists. They have been very good, and they've beaten every team that's gone in front of them except for Denmark. And you could be reading a little bit too much in there. But I want Portugal, Denmark in a semi-final. I think that would be a lot of fun. I think that would be the potential for one of the greatest
Gitzel
games
against
ever.
mini Gitzel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I do think Brazil are going to really shock Denmark, but Denmark they're going to win it. Then they're going to win that one.
And Croatia?
Croatia will beat Hungary. I think they'll.
Well, there we have it. There's our predictions, and we'll be back after the quarterfinals to look at how we did and look back at the action on Tuesday and Wednesday. Enjoy the games, everyone, and we'll catch you soon. Goodbye.